Hello everybody, it's your favorite writer, Catherine York. Let's get into the video. First chapters are very, very important because you often have readers who also like to open the first page and just read the first sentence. If it looks boring, they will not pick up on the book. So whether you're writing online or you're writing, trying to get published, in any case, you want to have a really good first sentence and then a really good first chapter. Now, there are a lot of mistakes that can be done here, which is very dangerous. And I have done this mistake, so guilty as charged, but I have tried to make the best of it. I learned from this, and from that point forward, I tried to make a really good first chapter. Now, I don't always follow these specific rules to a T. However, I do try to see them as a guideline of how a first chapter should look. So I'm going to start with the first thing that pops into my head, and that is boring, open first paragraphs. Like, if your first paragraph is boring, I'm not gonna read the story. It's just like it instantly lowers down my mood. So a typical boring first opening line would be using an overly used opening sequence, like waking up from a dream or starting the school day or waking up. These are already done so many times, and it's just you want to skip through that part. I advise you not to start your stories like this. Now, whether you're writing romance, particularly since this is my forte, when you're writing romance or whatever it is, you want to start with your writing voice. I think this is the best way that you can tell the reader what to expect based on the first sentence, like the first paragraph or the first chapter in general. Because how you started, it's how the readers are going to expect. So if you start with a really dark sentence, the reader is going to expect to read something dark along those lines. If you start with a really funny first sentence, the reader is going to expect to read a more funny following paragraph or chapter. So how you started is how you're going to lead the reader. So the reason why One Dark Stormy Night works so well, and we have reused this so many times, because it creates an air of mystery. So you kind of want to know what happens on that stormy night. If you know what your story is about, right? So let's say you have a typical normal story about a girl and boy falling in love. Maybe she has a tragic backstory, he has a tragic backstory. Maybe it's the enemies to lovers trope. Maybe they're fighting all the time. Maybe they're friends and they're starting to develop their romance. Maybe they are strangers and they have met in a cute aesthetic cafe. So whatever it is, you want to start with the scene the first pops into your head, and this is what I believe is best for any story. Is to start specifically with the scene that you want to write, that was in your head. So usually we write like the backstory of a character in the first chapter leading up to that specific moment, but I think the most impactful chapter would be if you put that to be on your first chapter, so the characters meet or straight into the interesting scene. If you started with that, the reader will have something interesting to read and it will be hooked on the first chapter. If you, let's say, start off with something boring, the reader will want to skip through that. So whatever info or however you're trying to paint your character, the reader is going to overlook it because they do not pay so much attention in the first pages. They don't care about the character that much. They want to see action first, and then they will follow up and maybe read more about the characters later. So this way it's good to start with action, like something specific that happens into the story, something interesting, and then you can go back and forth and explain a few details about the character. So we really don't have to know how the character looks like or what their eye color is or what their tragic backstory is into the first chapter. All you need to do is start with an interesting storyline, and then from there I think the reader would get invested, and whatever you write later in specifics, the reader will be interested in reading that. Speaking of that, another mistake is putting too much information into the first chapter, explaining how the character looks, both characters. Let's say you have two characters coming up in the first chapter, explaining how they look, explaining their backstory, explaining how long they have been friends, just explaining too much in the first chapter is a big no-no for me. Okay, so that changed drastically. You don't want to use pointless intros. You don't want to start with 5 years ago without introducing the character first or whatever their story is. So I don't care what happened 5 years ago, I want to know what happens now. So you want to avoid any type of flashbacks into the first chapter. Another mistake is giving us too much detail, to revealing everything into the first chapter. I mean, just like overly describing stuff. If you're not gonna follow up with describing stuff throughout the whole story, which I doubt you will, don't describe too much in the first chapter. Yeah, I think that the best way to write a really good first chapter is to just skip explaining too much about the describing too much stuff, like how the table looked, how her room looked. Just like let's say your character is a girl and you want to describe something that's like her room or something, just skip it. Like if it's not important, do not even waste time describing it. That's what I'm gonna say. And lastly, I want to point out that I'm not writing this as a specific 1 to 3. This is just like in general opinion that I have that will strengthen your story. So I want you to like listen to this video and think about it on your own. The last thing I wanted to mention was I really feel like if you're posting your story somewhere online, you want to finish the story first and then go back and edit some stuff, because I feel like the best developed chapters are the ones you work through after your whole story has been finished. So of course, while you're writing your story, you're gonna have some pauses in which you're not writing the story, and in those times you can go back and reflect on your chapters. Like let's say the first chapter, the second chapter, the third chapter will probably have some things you might want to work on, or if you change your mind about something, you're gonna go back and revise that. So this way I think it's very important to not publish your story anywhere until it's finished, or at least wait until the last chapter in which you're certain that everything from beginning to near the end, it's perfect. You're not gonna need to go back and revise it. Avoid publishing your story. First, finish it, have the idea in your head, because so much we start with an original idea and that idea changes as you write. And you tend to discover stuff about the characters, and the story can sometimes take a toll on its own. Like you can just like see your characters doing completely different things than what you originally intended them to. So yes, avoid, if you can, publishing your story until it's finished, because I'm pretty sure that just writing one chapter and then rereading it over and over and over again, it's not gonna make it better if the rest of the story just doesn't align with the first chapter. So that's why I think it's important like to watch out for that. And yeah, that's what I think makes a really good killer chapter. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.